I started the building process prior to deciding I wanted to video it. So these are some still images that I had of setting the poles and getting the poles straight and braced up. This next one is getting the footer in. The concrete guys dug this footer in for me. This one is just a picture of the lean-to with the braces on it. And now you got the concrete guys actually doing their work, pouring the concrete and floating it. And now they've taken the braces off the edge of the concrete. And here's a front picture showing the ramps. One's a little longer than the other one because the ground is uneven. And this just shows a later picture of the puddles. Got the fence back up. Still missing the single boards that cover the post. Now that I got the fence back up, there's several things that has to be done before I can get the trusses up. As you see, all the tops of the poles are all different lengths because we just shoved them down in the holes and it's gonna saw them off later, so that has to be done. But I think first and foremost, all these braces that we use for the poles need to come down. And then I gotta add a little bit of dirt in there to build that up just a little bit. So I think that's what I'm gonna do next. Well, sometimes things don't go quite as planned. You're able to dump a little of it and then the battery goes dead on the dump trailer. Got her hooked up. Let's see how she does. Well, doing pretty good now. The job tonight is going to be to mark the top of the poles to know where to cut them off. That way they're all even. The only thing will be I won't be able to do these two in the front. Those two on it's going to be the right and the left side of the garage doors. And then those two in the back. Because that's where I'll have to mark them with the trusses when I start to put the trusses up. But I want to get these marked tonight while my beer assistant's around to help me out with it, because she won't be around tomorrow. And that way tomorrow I can get them cut off. And then if I have time this evening, I'll try to dig in this electric wire that's going to go to my breaker panel. It's going to be inside. Well, that's going to be an awkward climb, but maybe we'll get there. Didn't really have any choice since it's so close to the edge. There's no way to get at the top with as tall as that ladder is, how much of an angle it has on it. But we'll get there. Pole number 1, here we come. So we're up here measuring this one. As you can tell, it's pretty close to the top. If you move over to the side over here, you can see it's uneven. Top will be about right here, but this back side is still up high enough. So I think it'll work just fine. All right, all my pole tops are marked. I'll be able to cut those off tomorrow. Got the wire pulled in my pipe for the breaker panel. Dug in, covered up. Lexi looks like she's protecting it. Had a little time before dark, so I went ahead and took the backer boards off that I used to pull a string and make sure my posts were square. Pro tip, I like using this metal unistrut. A friend of mine mentioned it, I don't know, 6 months ago about it being more rigid, and it is. So pro tip, use metal instead of wooden posts, wooden stakes sticking down. It'll be a lot more rigid and you won't have as much shake in it. Stuff loaded in my truck to take it and put it out of the weather. Well, it's morning again. We're back out here at it. Got to cut the tops of the poles off. I got 2 chainsaws, the battery powered ones. One is a China brand. Not sure what the actual brand is. And one is Milwaukee. Now, I typically prefer Milwaukee battery powered tools because they're amazing. But that little bar, if you can see it, I'm up front of these. There's the difference in the bars. So I think the one is about 10 inches and the other is 6 inches. So got 9-inch poles. I needed to be able to cut all the way through them. This China brand is just very basic. You take the battery power off. It actually has a hole inside that you plug in a battery charger that plugs directly to the wall. And of course these just use the normal M12 batteries. What's really neat about these is it has the chainsaw tool. And that comes in handy for tightening the chain if you're going to cut quite a bit. Now, I don't know that we're going to cut enough to warrant tightening the chain today, but it does come in handy if you do. Let's get started. The blue China saw made it through 2 poles and about 4 inches of this one before the battery ran dead. Time to try the Milwaukee. Initial reaction to the Milwaukee. Wow. It cut through that one post a lot faster than the China saw cut through the first post. I think it has a faster chain speed. So obviously faster revolutions per minute because it's a much shorter chain, but the actual speed of each tooth I think is going much faster. And initially the motor was a lot stronger. I mean, you could just tell the torque difference. It was insane. But right there toward the end, it started stopping on me like it was running out of juice. Now, I was using an older battery, about a 2-year-old battery, so I put a fresh, brand new battery on, so we'll see how long this M12 6.0. The other one, by the way, was also a 6.0 battery, so we'll see how long this one lasts. All right, that battery worked a lot better. It still stopped in some of the hard spots of the pole, but I mean, it's still just 12 volt. So I think an 18 volt would be a lot better for this application, but typically you aren't using it for this application. If you're buying that small of a pole, you're just doing a couple limbs here and there, in which case I think it'd be fantastic. I look forward to using it some more. So I found out a little trick. I know some of y'all are probably already yelling at your screens and I just couldn't hear you. So I've cut a lot of firewood in my day, and right when you get close to the bottom, the wood starts pinching together and it'll pinch your saw. If you don't have a really strong saw just to get through there, you got to kind of lift it up or, you know, get creative with it. Well, these were doing the same thing at the top of the post there. They were, when you cut all but about the last quarter of it, they'd start kind of creeping back and pinching. Even though it didn't look like it, it was pinching ever so much to where this 12 volt saw just couldn't get through it. So in this very last one, I pushed it over just a little bit, went right through, no problem. Saw never stopped once I did that. So I think it was user error. I don't know that it was the battery. Got to cut the tops of the poles off for the lean-to. Remember, boys and girls, chainsaws are like air guns. Got to come a couple ugga-duggas before you get started. I forgot to mention, the reason I used the electric chainsaw the first time is because I was home alone. I think I mentioned that in the first video. But I've got several people here now, so if I cut off a limb, somebody's here to call the doctor for me.